Hi there, Alan Reece with the law firm of Frank and Kraft, sitting here again with Susan Wack, a geriatric care manager here in Indianapolis. We're talking today about assisted living facilities, what they are, how they work, and how to select one for either you or a loved one. Welcome back, Susan.
Thanks, Alan. Good to be here.
So tell me a little bit about what an assisted living facility is and what it's not.
Oh boy, that's a loaded question here. Assisted livings are, I think, what most families would say would be the step before nursing home. Most of their parents don't want to go to a nursing home, but this has some type of support, some level of additional support that somebody living alone isn't available. Here in the state of Indiana, assisted livings are known as housing with services establishments. And
Okay.
basically, if you've got 5 or more people living under a roof and you're offering a minimal amount of additional services like meals or housekeeping, those are technically considered assisted living within the state of Indiana. But to make matters more confusing, if you offer additional care such as nursing or medication management as prescribed by physicians, those facilities must be licensed assisted living, or licensed residential care facilities. If you don't offer that, you're still an assisted living, but you're not licensed.
Okay.
Now, all of the facilities that are known as housings with services establishments or assisted livings have to file annually what's called a disclosure form that basically specifies what services they offer, who owns the building, how is it and who manages it, what kind of services are offered, what the costs are for overall base fee as well as any additional care costs. So that's kind of covered, and it helps consumers when you're going to tour an assisted living. You can ask for a copy of their annual disclosure form, and then you can compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges.
Okay. So tell me a little bit more about someone's in a situation, it would occur to them, oh, maybe what I need is an assisted living facility. How do you know that's the type of facility you're looking for in terms of the needs? How do you end up selecting that instead of, on one hand, maybe in-home care, on the other hand, maybe a full nursing facility?
I think that's as variable as each family.
Okay.
I think a lot of families think that, well, if mom or dad is in an assisted living, then they've got 24-hour care and there's backup support. That isn't always necessarily the case. Not all facilities offer 24-hour around-the-clock care, and if they do, they're not necessarily CPR certified or a nursing staff. So you, as a consumer, you have to be very cautious and wary and ask the right questions.
Okay. So is there a reason why someone would lean towards going with the licensed facility versus the unlicensed facility? Is one always the right answer? Is it? Okay.
Yeah, there's not one right answer. The right answer is for that individual person's needs now and the future. As a geriatric care manager, I'll get situations where I see somebody living in the home is starting to lose what we call executive function skills, judgment, problem solving. They're at higher risks for potential fires or medication errors, and it might need to be monitored a lot more closely. That would be probably something that you would steer them towards an assisted living that's a residential care facility, because there's 24-hour nursing care, there's medication management, and there's supervision around the clock. But then I have other residents that are living alone and they're lonely and they're not eating well because they're lonely. And so non-licensed assisted living would be just as good, and they have activities and help with cleaning, shopping, transportation. So it just, every case varies, and you have to be ask the right questions.
Okay.
And then some assisted livings that are non-licensed will contract with home health agencies to come in and provide that additional support.
Okay.
So it gets very confusing for consumers out there.
If you're in a position of trying to ask those right questions, what are some resources you can look to help you out with that?
I would say the Indiana Assisted Living Association has some good guidelines for questions to ask on when you're shopping for an assisted living.
And we'll have a link to that on the website.
Right, and I Massachusetts Family Caregiver Association website also has something, and I apologize, I'm blanking out the name right now, but we
We'll
will
look it
have
up
that.
and we'll post it.
Yeah, thank you.
In terms of researching, in terms of registering with the state and disclosures and disclaimers and just forms that people can look for, there are certain things that assisted living facilities, either on the licensed or the unlicensed side, have to file with the state when you're trying to determine, quality or comparison.
Right. Right. Well, I think the first thing that I said, the disclosure forms,
Right.
when you go to tour, you can ask for a copy of that. That's the first thing. Those that are licensed are under the State Department of Health, and they have annual surveys. So you can look at their surveys online with the State Health Department, and so that's useful too.
Okay. This one thing one sort of type of care that often falls under the umbrella of assisted living is something called memory care.
Right.
Now, we have a separate video talking about memory care, but I thought maybe it'd be helpful if you could put memory care in the context of the broader sort of assisted living conversation in terms of disclosures they have to file, in terms of what you're looking for.
Right. Here in the state of Indiana, memory care facilities have different types of disclosure forms that have to be filled out. And they ask much more specific questions about things like, under what circumstances will you accept somebody with, say, Alzheimer's, dementia, if they have wandering behaviors, if they are acting out sexually, if they are combative, all of these things that they will look at. And they ask about staffing. They're asking questions about what their daily activities are for kind of improving the quality of the day for that person with dementia.
Okay.
So again, you can compare memory care facilities to memory care facilities by requesting a copy of their disclosure form with the state of Indiana.
Okay.
Or actually, the facilities are supposed to provide that to consumers.
All right. Any closing thoughts that folks should keep in mind if they're in a position of looking for an assisted living facility for a loved one, or deciding whether that's the right choice for them?
If you're unsure, I would say contact a geriatric care manager.
Sure.
And also, many of these are tied in with continuing care retirement communities.
Okay.
So sometimes their guidelines fall under the larger community and the costs fall under the larger community. So it's a difficult thing to try and sort out. And having being informed as possible as you can about as a consumer is your best advice.
We should say these continuing care retirement communities, also known by the acronym CCRCs. They are actually a separate form of care facilities that are registered with the state. There's different guidelines that govern them, and they're sort of not cradle to grave, but they go through the entire continuum of care from people living independently all the way towards a full nursing facility.
Yeah, health facilities, memory cares, assisted living, sometimes all of that falls under that umbrella. So you kind of want to, make sure those costs may be very different than just the independently owned and operated. And if you're just looking at costs, that's probably not the best way to do it.
Hmm.
You want to look at what the needs are. And again, I go back to the closer the facility is to the family, and the more often the family is going in and checking on things, I think the better care that older adult will receive.
Squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us again. For people looking for geriatric care managers, obviously Susan is a professional geriatric care manager. You can also go to the National Association of Professional Geriatric Care Managers.
Yeah, it's www.caremanagers.org.
And there's a link and a landing page for that association on the Elder Care channel. So make sure to check that out if you need a little help. Thanks for joining us today as we answer some questions about assisted living facilities, and thanks for educating us a little bit.
Thanks, Helen.
Thanks. Take care.